Long ago, the shining kingdom of Belarus was ruled by King Alwyn and Queen Lizabel, admired far across the world. Their palace overlooked silver rivers and golden wheat. Soft music drifted from marble balconies each evening. But the kingdom's greatest beauty was not its wealth. It was their daughter, Princess Elara. Born on the night of the blue moon, Elara grew up gentle and kind. She wandered gardens barefoot, talked with servants, and always remembered her mother's words. A crown only shines when the heart beneath it is good. Of all the wonders in the kingdom of Belarus, the strangest was a gray donkey named Orion, who lived alone in the last stall of the royal stables. At first glance, Orion looked perfectly ordinary. He ate hay, swatted flies, and napped just like any donkey. But every morning, stable workers found an impossible miracle beneath his straw. Hundreds of solid, pure gold coins glowing bright in the early sun. No one knew where the magic came from. King Adwin collected the coins each week and used the wealth to feed hungry villages, build bridges, and store grain against famine. No one in Belarus had starved in 10 years, all thanks to this gray donkey. No one loved Orion more than Princess Elara. She slipped away from evening lessons to visit him, bringing a stiff hog-hair brush. She brushed his rough gray fur while whispering of her days, her worries, and her nurse's silly jokes. Orion always bowed his head gently, nudging her open palm with his soft muzzle, as if he understood every word. For 10 quiet, peaceful years, the entire kingdom rested in gentle, unbroken calm. Then disaster fell completely without warning. Overnight, the beloved queen fell gravely, deathly ill. Top doctors traveled quickly to attend her. Healers brought rare herbs, glowing crystals, and sacred oils. Priests knelt at her bedside, praying from dusk to dawn. But nothing could hold back the sickness. Before her last breath, she clutched the king's trembling hand and whispered, "Promise me, if you marry again, only someone more beautiful and wiser than I was." Blinded by tears, the king swore to keep her promise. Soon after, the queen drew her last breath. The palace draped in black, music gone, even fountains seemed to mourn. Princess Elara grieved deeply but stayed strong for the kingdom, while the king slowly changed. His sorrow twisted into a dark obsession. Years passed, and every noble woman the king met failed to match his late queen's grace. None were beautiful and wise enough as she asked. Then, during a grand royal banquet, the king looked at Elara and froze. She looked exactly like her mother. Same soft eyes, same gentle smile, same warm voice. A dangerous, forbidden thought slipped into his mind, and instead of pushing it away, he embraced it fully. King Theron stood before his assembled royal council, his deep voice echoing off the great cold stone chamber walls. "I shall marry Princess Elara," he coldly declared, firm and unyielding. The entire court froze immediately, every breath caught in throats of horror. No one dared speak or move. Ministers lowered their heads, staring hard at their scuffed leather boots. Servants hid behind marble pillars, trembling in silence. Even the beeswax candles flickered uneasily, as if they too feared the king's mad choice. Princess Elara, standing silent beside the throne, felt the whole world collapse beneath her feet. She loved her father, but this marriage was wrong, an unforgivable, terrible sin. Terrified and completely heartbroken, she slipped out of the palace as dusk fell and ran straight to the only person she could fully trust. That person was the old fairy godmother who lived deep within the shadowed dark forest. The old fairy sat on her worn wooden stool, listening carefully to every word of Elara's shaking, tearful story. Then she tapped Elara's trembling hand with her gnarled, wrinkled finger and said softly, "Delay him. Ask for impossible things." Next morning, Elara stood straight before the king, her hands clenched tight behind her back. Hiding her shaking fear under a calm voice, she said, "Father, if you wish me to marry, first bring me a dress, the color of the sky." The king smiled confidently, certain this request was simple. Within days, royal tailors delivered a blue silk gown stitched with diamonds that shimmered like sunrise clouds. Elara's heart sank. Her first trick failed. She asked for a moon-bright dress, and soon a glowing silver gown sparkling like moonlight on water arrived. Desperate to avoid the unwanted marriage, Elara asked for one final impossibility. "Bring me a dress that shines like the sun itself." The king summoned craftsmen from all kingdoms, and soon a golden gown glowing like living sunlight forced onlookers to shield their eyes. Elara's fairy godmother frowned, seeing even Elara's clever tricks could not stop the king's blind obsession. She whispered a final desperate plan. "Ask him for the skin of the golden donkey, Orion." Elara gasped. Everyone knew the king valued Orion more than all his royal treasure. Surely this request would be too much, and he would finally refuse. But obsession had consumed all reason. The next morning, Orion lay dead, his skin laid before Elara. She wept bitterly, for the donkey and for her own lost innocence. Elara pressed her palm to the cold stone palace wall, holding her breath and waiting. That very night, her fairy godmother came to help her escape. One by one, the fairy pulled 3 glowing magical dresses from the closet, folded them gently, and tucked them into an ornate enchanted chest. The lock clicked on its own, and the chest shrank to the size of a small basket, ready to follow Elara anywhere. Next, the fairy handed Elara a thick, coarse donkey pelt. Elara wrapped herself completely in its matted rough fur, hiding every trace of her golden hair and glowing beauty. She scooped mud and rubbed it over her hands and face, until no one could recognize her. Dawn had not yet broken, and the sky still glowed dark purple over the palace spires. Elara slipped past the drunk night guards at the gate, pulled her hood low, and stepped past the iron bars forever. Behind her, torches flickered as the palace faded into thick morning mist. The enchanted chest tugged gently at her side. Ahead lay only open road, and cold, bright uncertainty. Elara pulled the coarse donkey fur tighter around her shoulders, stepping into another dusty village. For months she had wandered, never staying long enough to be remembered. No one looked past the caked mud on her face and hands to see who she really was. Everyone mocked her strange looks. Children threw pebbles, women told cruel jokes. Men yelled the name they gave her, Donkey Skin. No one guessed the disguise hid a runaway princess. At last, she found work as a kitchen maid in a distant grand castle. Cooks overworked her, left only scraps for her to eat. She scrubbed floors, carried water, cleaned hearths, and slept in a tiny, drafty room under the stairs. But every Sunday, when no one was watching, Elara locked her small door. She carefully washed the mud from her skin, then opened her hidden magical chest. She pulled out a gown stitched like the sky, or the glowing moon, or the brilliant sun. In these quiet, stolen moments, she remembered the princess she truly was. Tears often pooled in her lap, but she never let bitterness take root in her heart. Even in hardship, she held on to the light of who she was, waiting for better days. Prince Lucien leaned against the stable door, brushing mud from his boots. After 3 days helping flood-stricken villagers, unlike other princes, he hated grand feasts and empty flattery, preferring ordinary people over courtiers. Returning to the castle that Sunday, he cut through back halls to avoid the king's advisors. A soft glow seeped through a cracked door. Glancing through the gap, he froze. Inside stood a woman in a dress, woven from pure sunlight, turning the dusty room into dawn. His breath caught. He'd never seen anyone like her. When he reached to knock, the door slammed shut and the glow vanished. For weeks, Lucien could not stop thinking of her. He did not want a bride, he wanted answers. Searching the servants' wing daily, no one knew of a glowing guest. Only a quiet new servant called Donkey Skin, who wore a tattered grease-stained dress and kept her head bowed. After 3 days of watching her work, he glimpsed her eyes. They held the same soft, sad glow he'd seen through the door. Prince Lucian stood alone at the palace ballroom window, having not danced all night. His thoughts were stuck entirely on a humble servant girl he had seen 3 days before. He searched the palace every day, and only found one matching girl, the ragged servant called Donkey Skin, her face always smudged with ash. Soon after, Lucien fell mysteriously ill. He could not eat or sleep, and fever burned him to his bones. He would only recover if Donkey Skin baked him a cake. The court thought it madness, but the king granted the request. Elara, her real name, heated the oven, mixed the batter. A tear slipped into the bowl. Then she hid her tiny engraved gold ring deep in the cake before baking it. When Lucien ate it, he found the ring at the bottom of his plate. The search for the prince's mystery girl had officially begun. Across the entire kingdom, every unmarried woman lined up eagerly, all desperate to win the prince's hand and the crown. Rich noblewomen squeezed their fingers until their knuckles blanched, forcing them into the tiny silver ring. Many cheated, swapping slimmer fingers to trick the test. Some even bruised their joints trying to force the ring to fit, but it stayed too small for every woman who tried. At last, a snickering courtier joked, "Why not try Donkey Skin? She's the only unmarried girl left." The whole court burst into loud, mocking laughter, but Prince Lucien insisted everyone get a turn. Nervously, Elara stepped forward, her filthy donkey skin cloak dragging across the cold stone floor. She slowly pulled off one rough, dirt-caked glove. Beneath the grime sat a soft, delicate hand. The ring slipped on perfectly, no forcing needed. The entire hall fell dead silent. Elara shrugged off the donkey skin, and gasps echoed through the palace. Before them stood a radiant princess in shining gold, more beautiful than sunrise, more graceful than moonlight. Lucien looked at her with tenderness, not triumph. Learning true beauty survives even sorrow, hardship, and humiliation. Word that Elara still lived spread faster than wildfire. It rushed across border rivers, climbed steep mountain passes, and reached every corner of every known kingdom. 3 weeks later, a worn carriage creaked to the abbey gates. 10 years had hunched his once broad shoulders and turned his dark hair fully gray. He'd hunted for her across every kingdom, begged every traveler for a scrap of news. Too anxious to ride, he walked the last 20 miles to the abbey. He fell to his knees in dust before Elara, tears cutting trails down his dirty cheeks. His hands shook so hard he could barely clasp them together as he begged for forgiveness. Elara stared in silence as wind rustled the abbey's apple trees. Softly, she said, "Pain can destroy a heart or change it." She chose mercy over hatred and stepped aside to gesture him stand. Peace finally returned to both their hearts. Princess Elara and Prince Lucien stand hand in hand, married beneath glowing silver glass lanterns that light the whole celebration square. For 3 straight days, the city streets echo with laughter and joyful song. Common folk and nobles alike gather, cheering and rejoicing side by side. But this was no ordinary royal wedding. The great celebration is not for Elara's beauty, nor the crown's vast wealth. It marks something far more precious the whole kingdom now shares. It celebrates a hard-won truth that now unites every corner of the kingdom. A person's worth is never decided by fine clothes, inherited power, or outward appearances. Sometimes, the kindest, purest soul hides beneath the roughest, most unassuming skin anyone can imagine. From that day onward, whenever anyone judges another too quickly out of old bias, parents sit their children down and tell the story of the princess who wore donkey skin. Thank you for watching Toon Cartoon. For more awesome, magical, and exciting stories, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel today.